Good afternoon. I am Mary Ellen Graff. I am an implementation and training specialist at TeachingBooks. I'm here with my colleague, Kim Davick, and we're here to show you the resources available to you through BadgerLink on TeachingBooks. You can see I'm on the BadgerLink website, and the easiest way to get to TeachingBooks through the BadgerLink website is to select all resources and then T for TeachingBooks. And once you click on T for TeachingBooks, it pops to the top of to the center of your screen. And when you click on the TeachingBooks link, it will take you to a login page. And it will ask you for your institution. If you follow the prompts, you will then be welcomed by your school district or building under the BadgerLink umbrella. I'm going to go to my page. You can see that I am under the general umbrella of BadgerLink. You will have divisions for your school districts and your public libraries, and you will be placed under those, and you'll be welcomed at the top of the screen, upper left, as well as in the center box. And you'll be welcomed by that learning reading community. Once you get to TeachingBooks, and I'll explain a little more about what TeachingBooks is, I would suggest for you as an educator, library or educational professional, to create an educator login. At this level, all Wisconsin residents have access to TeachingBooks, and they can go in and explore, they can look at resources, they can look at the database, but by creating an educator login, you're allowed a deeper level of access. You can customize, you can share links, you can create customized lessons or lists, and so it gives you that deeper level of access. It's all included under BadgerLink. It's all paid for through the funds that BadgerLink resources are provided to. And to create that educator login, what you're going to do is look for the 3-line toggle menu. It's in the upper left of your screen. And when you click on it, you'll have a slide panel open. And as you look down, you'll see your license, your reading list, and here is educator login. Now this is for professionals, adults actually, any adults in Wisconsin. And you're going to want to start with your work email. And we ask that you use your work email because then it will make sure to put you under your correct learning community. And then you'll set up a personal password that you can use. And once you've created an educator login and you sign in, you'll notice that it changed at the top right of my screen from Welcome BadgerLink to Welcome Mary Ellen. And it will welcome you by your first name. As I said, you all have access, you all can explore the database, but creating that educator login gives you another level of tools and resources that you can access, particularly some sharing tools. But what is TeachingBooks? TeachingBooks is a database of resources to go along with the books being used in classrooms, libraries, homes, pre-K through 12th grade. And to show you a little bit of the depth of that database, I'm choosing Browse, and then I'm going to choose See All Books. And it's going to take just a minute to think because it's looking up and putting in order all the books in the database, all 68,598 titles. That means we have resources for 68,598 titles today. Our fabulous content team adds titles and resources every single day. And so it is an ever-growing collection of resources that go along with books. There's 2 ways that I like to think about TeachingBooks that I'm going to share with you today. The first way is to use TeachingBooks to find resources for the books, the authors, or the topics that I know that I want to explore and find resources for. And then the other way is to add books to collections, to look for new titles or new things to add in to collections of titles that you're looking for. So let's start by using TeachingBooks to search by title, author, or keyword to find resources for a book we may be using. Before I do that, I just want to show you the depth of the resources pre-K through 12th grade. We've got about 20,000 titles. If you look on the far left of the screen, 20,000 titles at each grade band. So if you don't see yourself in the first few examples, just wait. I'll try to give examples pre-K through 12th grade throughout the time where I'm showing different features. But let's start with a middle level book. And I'm just going to search by title, refugee. And you can see it brings up titles with refugee in it. If there were authors that had the name refugee, they would show up. We can see lists and awards, or we can see subject searches. But I'm specifically looking for this book by Alan Grant. And I clicked on it, and now we're looking at a book page. A book page will look the same whether you're looking at a pre-K book or a 12th grade AP English book. You're going to see the cover of the book, some icons right here, the plus and the arrow, and I'll come back to these. You'll see a link to the author, a table of contents that has awards, resources, and some other data. You'll always see a few featured resources. And then as I scroll down, you will see grade level and genre classifications. And as I continue, you can see the types of resources we have for titles. Now, we don't have all of these resources for every title, but this is a pretty good sampling of the types of resources. We've got original teaching books resources. We've got them classified by author or author interviews. We've got book guides, activities, and lessons, and some of these are customizable to a certain level. Book readings, trailers, vocabulary lists, and awards and distinctions. I'm going to start by sharing one of our original teaching books resources with you. So I clicked on that, the accordion opened up, and I wanted to take a look at this Meet the Author recording. Now, I'm going to point out now, you're going to see an arrow here that matches this arrow, and I'll give you some more details about that in a little bit. But just notice, you'll see these red arrows all over the website, and they're really helpful to remember. I'm going to open up this resource, and you can see that there is an audio play bar as well as a transcript below the play bar. And we have interviewed authors and asked them to explain their motivation or tell us a little bit about writing that book. So as I'm working with students, they can hear from the author what motivated or inspired them to write the book. So let's take a listen.
Hi, I'm Alan Grant, the author of Refugee. I'd like to share with you a little bit about how this story came about and then read a short excerpt for you. The story of Refugee began with the MS St. Louis, a real ship that set sail from Nazi Germany in early 1939 with 937 passengers on board, almost all of them Jewish refugees bound for Cuba. I was still looking for a way into the story of the MS St. Louis for young readers when my wife and daughter and I took a family vacation to the Florida Keys in early 2015. One morning we got up to walk along the small patch of beach in front of our resort, and we ran right into a homemade boat that someone had used to come to America.
I'm going to pause this recording there for a second because I want to demonstrate another piece that can support accessibility for your students. So you have students that are auditory and that benefit from listening to it. You have students that can read and just read the transcript, and those students who can listen and read at the same time. But if we go up to the top of the page, you'll see that the TeachingBooks website, and I'm looking at the far right of the screen in the top orange stripe or red stripe, select a language. If I'm working with multilingual families or multilingual learners, I can translate this transcript. There's about, I think there's over 100, I think it's about 109 languages. I can translate it into any of these languages in just a click. So now it's in Arabic. The audio will be still in English, but my student who can read Arabic and can benefit from listening and reading in two different languages can still follow along.
There was room on the wooden benches for 13 people, and abandoned clothing and plastic water bottles still littered the floor. The back end had an old rusty engine that had been yanked out of a car or a tractor and was attached to a propeller shaft.
I'm going to pause it there and translate it back to English. And so you are able to have students listen in English and follow along in multiple different languages. Each of them could be working in a combination of language that works for them. I'm going to go back to the book page and show you the sharing tools. Now, the sharing tools are really helpful to get resources right in the hands of families, students, colleagues. Right now, I'm on the book page, and I pointed out this red arrow. If I click on this red arrow on a book page, I'll get this pop-up box. And in this pop-up box, I have options. So if I know a teacher is reading this book with their students, I can email them all of the resources connected to this title, everything that you just scanned, the vocabulary list, the lesson plans, the recordings, and they will have it and have immediate access. They do not need to log in. They do not need a username or password at all, because I have logged in as an educator and am sharing it with them. They have immediate access. I can even copy the link and post it on a website, and they have that immediate access. I could put it on a calendar so that when we meet as a team, we can talk about that book and the resources that go along with it. If I'm working with students, I might not want to share all the resources that belong with a book. I might, but I might not. I might want them just to listen to that recording we were listening to. I can do that as well. And when we looked for that recording, we saw these, what I like to call upside down Monopoly cards. And you'll see the red arrow here. It looks just like the one that's on the book page, but it's on an individual resource. Now, when I click on that resource, it will tell me exactly what I'm sharing, meet the author, book recording, refugee, and I can go in and I can post it in my Google Classroom so students can listen to it. I could create a label sheet, and it says what size labels you can print these on. This could be in the cover of a book as I distribute them to students to read. So they can listen to the author introduce the book before they start reading, or after they start reading, or as part of a discussion. But that label can go right into those books. I'm going to pop up the sharing tools again. And this time I'm going to choose a shelf talker. Shelf talker is ready to be printed. It has a QR code on it, ready to be cut out and folded and tucked on the shelf so that students can actually have a blended learning experience, listen to that book reading as they're choosing books to take home to read. So instead of always listening to me do the book talk, they can listen to the author do the book talk. Going back to the book page, I've showed you how to search by title. There's a couple of other ways you can search. Another is by author. So maybe we know we're reading Jason Reynolds. Again, it just standard search box, but now we have all the resources that go along with the books that Jason Reynolds has written. We can look at the titles of those books. We can read one of the 39 interviews or listen to, and we can go in and explore and find those resources connected with a specific author. So if you're building a display or featuring an author in your library, the number of resources that go along with those books is 106 that go along with the 14 books that he's written. So you can search by title, you can search by author, and always remember those sharing tools are right there to put those resources right where you want them. You can also use the scanner. So in the search box, you'll see a scanning icon. If you're on a smartphone, a tablet, or a computer with a camera, you can click that and scan the ISBN of the book, and the resources will come right up. If you're at your library checkout, you can just have your cursor in the search box and use your scanner to scan the ISBN, and the resources for those titles will come right up. So if you have a stack of books at your checkout, you can quickly scan and create a QR code to put into each one. So that's the first way I think about using TeachingBooks, looking for titles, authors, or keywords that I know I'm looking for. So I can do a search on inventors, or I could do a search on activism, and those titles would come up. The other way I like to think about using TeachingBooks is to browse for titles that maybe aren't on the front of my mind. Maybe they're new to me, or maybe I'm building a collection for a specific purpose, whether it's a display or a unit study or a specific learning target. And one of the ways you can do that is by using the browse feature. And browse is on your on the white under the red bar, kind of to the right of the screen if you're on a standard computer. If you're on a smaller device like a phone or a tablet, the site is responsive, and that browse will come up under the toggle menu, the 3 lines on the left side of the screen. So depending upon the ratio of your screen, you may have to look in a different place for it. It's still there. Sometimes it just gets shy and has to hide for a little while. But I'm going to choose browse because you can start a search in a number of ways. As I did earlier, I chose see all books. I could do that. And I can narrow a search from see all books. Sometimes it takes a minute to think, but now we've got all of the titles in the database, all 68,000 plus. But I want to narrow my search. So if I'm looking to narrow, I can choose grade level. And let's say this time we're looking for a pre-K title. And then I can go down and I can narrow by curricular area, or I can narrow by cultural area. So let's look here. So we're pre-K and Latinx. And now we have some titles that we can go in and explore. And we can go in and look at the resources connected with them. But maybe I found this title by Juju Morales and I want to mark it so that I remember it. A good way to do that is to make sure you're logged in as an educator. So check to see that you have your name at the top of the screen. And then you're going to look for the plus sign. And you can see it here on a search, or you can find it if I go to that specific book page. See, the plus sign is add to reading list. All you need to do is click that. And I'm going to name my list, and then I'm going to scroll down and add to list. So now I have a book list with one book on it, but I have the opportunity to share that. I can annotate it, which I'll show you. I can do all sorts of things with that list. So as I am searching for titles, as I find more titles that I want to add to that list, I can click that plus sign and add them to the list. Once I've started to create a list, you're going to find it under the toggle menu. So again, you're logged in as an educator. The toggle menu is the 3 lines on the left of the screen. And now you can see some information about my license and my reading lists. So now you can see the Wisconsin lists, and below that, I can personally see my lists. So I have one book on my story time list. I can add to that. I can share it here. I can edit it. I have all those opportunities. So let's go into one of these great Wisconsin lists and see if there's some more titles we want to add to that list. So I'm going to see all Wisconsin lists. And this was my story time list. So I'm looking for titles for younger readers. So let's look on the Read on Wisconsin book club and see if there's a few titles that we want to add. So this is pre-K to 12. So I'm going to use my narrowing tools and narrow pre-K 2. And then I can use the plus sign. I want to add Crown to my story time list. And I can just add it. And so now the list has 2 titles on it. I'm going to go back to those great Wisconsin reading lists, and let's look at the Golden Archer. Let's see. I'm going to choose the Golden Archer Award for K2, and let's add multiple titles. There's so many great titles. On this list, you can see add multiple titles to a reading list. So if I choose that, and I want to add just maybe 3 of these, I'm going to select those. I'm going to add them to my story time list, and I'm going to hit save. So now I have a list that I can use as a display for a literacy night, to encourage students to check out these books and read them over the summer. And I have the opportunity to use the sharing tools just like we saw on the books or the resources. But this time, it's my story time list, all of those resources ready. I can create a bookmark or a flyer and have it ready to send home in backpacks with some great stories to read together as a family. So I'm going to show you again under the toggle menu. When I'm logged in as an educator, welcomed by my name, I'll find my reading list. And below that are my reading lists. I can go in and view that list. And now I can even make notes on that list. So below each title, I can name the students that might be reading it, or assigned to a group, save it, and that note will be on there. I can add a question about a section we're reading, or I could add a due date or a recommendation or a resource I want them to look at. I'm going to go back to the home page and show you a different browse. It's very similar, but gives you an opportunity to just see that again. I'm choosing browse. This time I want to browse by collection, and maybe I'm working with 7th through 12th graders. So now I've got books appropriate for 7th through 12th graders, and maybe I'm asking them all to read a biography. Now I've got almost 1,900 titles. Biography appropriate for 7th through 12th graders, and I can go in and take a look at these titles, and you'll see the book page looks very similar to the ones we saw before, but we can also see on many book pages a Google preview. So if I'm looking to build a collection, I can choose Google Preview, and I can get a taste of this book. It will be a percentage of the book. It won't be the whole book, but there we go. And as you go down, you can see the beginning of the book, just like you would see when you were opening the book up. And we can start to see some of the illustrations. And as we go through, we can learn more about this book by just having that preview. And the book, the Google preview is right there on the book page, and it gives you that opportunity to look. And so now we've decided that this is when we're going to add it to our list. So I'm back at my book page. I'm just going to add it to my list. It's not going to go on my storytime list, but it is going to go on my bios for high school list that I started earlier, and I can save it on that list. And then it is on that page. So I've started to show you the basics of using TeachingBooks. We've talked about creating an educator login so you have seamless access to those sharing tools so that you can create lists. I've showed you how to search and how to browse. There's a few other places that I'm going to point out to you. I like to think of it as, there's a lot of layers to TeachingBooks. There's places where you can explore and learn more about all different features, and one of them is the Instruct section of the website. So it's Browse and Instruct in the upper right. Once I choose Instruct, there's some areas to explore. I've got some literacy connection places. If I'm looking for diverse books, there's a place to start. If you're thinking about text complexity, we have some tools that you can explore and think more deeply about text complexity. As you go down, you'll see standards connections. Under standards connections, we've explored standards across the country. I'm going to just open STEAM as an example. And you can see that we've always cite the standards we're using. So next generation science standards for this page. We've picked several standards that connect with the resources on TeachingBooks. And there are resources that can help support teaching those. And on each of these pages, when applicable, we try to have a lower grade, a middle grade, and an upper grade example. So you can think about different ways the resources on TeachingBooks can be used to teach those standards. Also under Instruct, we have a few ready-to-use activities to explore. These were all built using the sharing tools. You can copy the QR code and put it into another document. So if you don't want it in the format that we've chosen, you can just copy and paste it onto a document. And we've done a little bit of that as a sample to get you started. And then finally, I'm going to talk about the help section of the website. So that's the farthest to the right. And there are tools for you to use as you continue to learn about TeachingBooks, or if you are helping your colleagues, families, or even students learn about TeachingBooks. We have our video tutorials. There's a 5-minute overview that covers many of the features that I've just explained. How to create a custom reading list, which I showed you, an educator login, and how to share resources. There's also a webinar archive where you can go in and explore different topics of webinars that we've presented. Also under help, we have a quick start menu, and we know adults as well as students all learn differently. So there is that video, if that's your learning style. We also have a PDF that will give you a basic training guide if you're the kind of person who likes to see examples written out. We also have a slide deck and a training script for you to use to do more self-training or to work with your staff as you're helping them learn more about TeachingBooks. And finally, we always have training available, and we have it available in many different ways. Those quick start menus, we have scheduled webinars. So we offer webinars throughout the year. We're doing some summer webinars now. We'll be doing more coming up. Or you can request support, and we will be happy to work with you. And of course, you could always work through BadgerLink as well to learn more about TeachingBooks. So I want to thank you so much for spending part of your day with me and exploring the resources on TeachingBooks. I encourage you to get on the site and start digging in if you have not been doing that, and explore and see what is there. There are resources pre-K through 12th grade, and so I hope you can find something that speaks to you and supports your students. Thank you so much for joining me today.